Before we start, I want you to picture something. You are in a tunnel, underground, pitch black. You can barely turn around. At the end of the tunnel is a badger. An animal that can weigh 10 kilos, has claws built for digging through hard soil, and will not back down from anything. Now imagine the only thing sent in to deal with that animal is a dog that looks like a hot dog. That's where this breed came from. That's the job it was built for. And somewhere along the way, we forgot that and started putting them in Halloween costumes. I'm Dog Coach Francis. This is the dog behind the human, the show where we go past the surface of a breed and talk about what's actually going on. Not the marketing version, not the social media version, the real version. The Wiener that hunts, the real story of the Dachshund. Let's get on it. Here is what most Dachshund owners have in common. They got the dog because it was charming, a little dramatic maybe, funny looking in the best possible way. The kind of dog that gets attention on a walk. And then they discovered that this small, low to the ground, adorable animal has opinions, loud ones. The dachshund barks. It barks at strangers. It barks at other dogs. It barks at sounds it has decided are suspicious. Some dachshunds will bark at a specific corner of the room on a Wednesday for no reason anyone can identify. The dachshund is also, and this is the word owners use most often, stubborn. They give a command, the dog looks at them, the dog looks away. The dog does what it was already going to do. And the dachshund guards its owners, its couch spot, its food bowl, sometimes a single sock it has decided belongs to it now. Owners manage this in different ways. Some carry the dog everywhere because they've heard the spine is fragile and they'd rather not risk a jump. Some let the dog run the house because it's small. What's the harm? Some have tried training and reported back that it doesn't work on this dog. What almost none of them have is context. They know the dog is called a Wiener dog. They know it's long. They know it's low. What they don't know is why. And what that why means for the dog they're living with right now. I've trained quite a few dachshund in my time, and that's all actually the common denominator, right? So they just really find the dog cute and low, and they find it funny. That's why they love the dachshund, but they don't really understand the real why. The dachshund is German. The name means badger dog. Dachs is badger, Hund is dog. In Germany today, most people call them Dackel or Teckel, not Dachshund. The earliest reliable descriptions of a dog matching the breed appear in the 18th century, though etchings from the late 1500s reference badger dogs and hold dogs in German forestry records. German foresters and hunters began standardizing the breed through 1700s and 1800s. The first breed standard was written in 1879. The German Dachshund Club was established in 1888. Now, what were they breeding for? Badgers are burrowing animals. They dig complex underground dens. They're nocturnal, and they're far more aggressive than most people expect. A badger cornered in a tunnel will fight. It has powerful claws, thick skin, and no instinct to retreat. Hunting them required a dog that could track them by scent to the burrow entrance and then go in after them. Think about that for a moment. Going underground into a tunnel too narrow to turn around, toward an animal that is waiting for you and is not afraid of you. That is the job the dachshund was built for, and its body was engineered accordingly. The long, low body wasn't an accident of genetics. It was the point. A dog that could move through underground passages, that would stop a larger animal. The short, powerful legs were built for digging, not just walking. The loose skin meant it could turn into a confined space without injury. The prominent brow bone offered protection for the head in combat. The large hinged jaw gave the dog a bite it could actually use against prey. The deep chest accommodated the lung capacity needed for sustained physical effort underground, where airflow is limited. The floppy ears weren't decorative, they kept soil and debris out of the ear canal when the dog was digging. The curved tail had two purposes. It was visible above long grass for hunters to track the dog, and it gave the hunter something to grip if they needed to pull the dog back out of the burrow. Every single thing about the dog's body was a tool. The breed came in three coat types: smooth, wire haired, and long haired. The smooth was the original. The wire coat came from breeding it with rough coated terriers in the 1800s, which also introduced some terrier temperament into that variety. The long coat came from crosses with cocker spaniels. Different coats, different working environments. The wire coat pushed through thorny brush. The long coat worked in water. There were also two variants: standard dachshunds, hunted badgers, and wild boar. When Germany's rabbit population expanded in the 1800s, a miniature version was developed for hunting rabbits and foxes. The same dog in a smaller package for smaller quarry. Dachshunds were also used in packs to track wounded deer by scent and trained to locate truffles and later during the World Wars to detect explosives. In 1972 at the Munich Olympic Games, a dachshund named Waldy was chosen as the first Olympic mascot in the modern era. The dog arrived in the United States in the 1880s, registered with the American Kennel Club in 1885. The Dachshund Club of America followed in 1895. During the First and Second World Wars, the Dachshund's German Association made ownership complicated. Owners in the United States rebranded them as Liberty Hounds and Badger Dogs to avoid anti German sentiment. There are documented cases of Dachshund owners and their dogs being targeted or attacked during this period. After the wars, the breed recovered its popularity. Today, it consistently ranks in the top 10 most popular breeds in the United States and across much of Europe. You know what? About the thing about the engineering and the body of the dachshund is they have difficulty in doing a sit. Whenever I train a dachshund, because of that elongated and long back of theirs, it's much more difficult for them to learn to do the sit. And they when they do sit, they kind of sit a little bit awkward. Here is what I want you to understand about the dachshund's behaviors, and specifically about the behavior that owners label as stubborn. The dachshund went underground alone. The hunter stayed at the surface. The dog was in the tunnel making decisions with no handler input, no commands, no guidance. It had to be an independent problem solver by design. If it wasn't, it couldn't do the job. So when your dachshund hears your command, considers it, and then makes a different choice, that is not defiance. That is a dog operating exactly as its genetics intended. It is weighing the information and deciding. You just need to be more persuasive than the badger was. The bark is the same story. Underground, the dog barked to tell the hunter where it was and when it had located prey. That bark is loud, persistent, and carries. A dachshund's bark relative to its body size is genuinely impressive, and it was supposed to be. It needed to travel through soil. In a modern apartment, that bark sounds like an alarm going off. In a forest in 18th century Germany, it was a communication system. The prey drive, the chasing, the digging, the fixation on small animals and fast moving things is a scent hound working the way it was wired. These dogs have an exceptional nose. They were bred to distinguish one animal's scent from another, to follow a trail through competing smells, to track a wounded deer hours after it passed through. When a dachshund has its nose to the ground and is ignoring you completely, it is not being rude, it is being a scent hound. The intense loyalty, the one person attachment that many dachshunds develop, is partly breed, partly a function of how owners manage it. A dog that is carried everywhere, shielded from other dogs, kept close at all times, and treated as a fragile object will develop the kind of attachment that tips into resource guarding, separation anxiety, and reactivity. The closeness that feels like love to the owner is often suffocation to the dog. Now, let's talk about the behavior that gets labeled as aggression. A 2008 study published in the Journal of Applied Animal Behavior Science found that dachshunds scored higher than average for aggression directed towards strangers and other dogs. This is often cited to make the case that dachshunds are inherently aggressive dogs. Here is what that data actually shows. A dog with high prey drive, high alertness, a strong opposition reflex, and sufficient socialization and training in a world where owners don't take its warning signal seriously because it's small. When you ignore a 35-kilogram dog's growl, you get bitten. When you ignore a 4-kilogram dog's growl, you laugh and post a video. The dog learns that its communication is pointless and escalates. The dachshund is not mean. It is a working dog in a body that most people don't take seriously. That's mismatch and the problem. One thing about I notice about dachshunds is the aggression is commonly misidentified. Like most dogs, when they're bored and they're trying to communicate, and then those communication signals are being disregarded, then a clever dachshund will find another way to communicate what they want or they probably mean. And that's when biting incidents happen because of this miscommunication. Again, we're talking about a really, really small dog. Um, and that's how it goes. Owner, sorry, he just barks at everything. He's harmless. He's just, how they are, very dramatic. Coach, how old is he? Owner, 4. He's always been like this. The vet says he has anxiety. Coach, does he get off leash time, sniffing walks, anything where he can just use his nose? Owner, we don't do off leash. His back. I'm always worried about him jumping or running too hard. The vet said to be careful. Coach, how does he get from the floor to the couch? Owner, I lift him always. He used to jump and it scared me. Dachshunds and jumping. Coach, when you leave the house, what happens? Owner, he cries for a while. We have a camera. It takes maybe 20, 30 minutes before he settles, sometimes longer. Coach, okay, here's what I'm seeing. You have a scent hound who gets no scent work. You have an independent breed who makes no independent decisions because all decisions get made for him. You have a dog with a strong alert bark who has never been given a job where the bark has a resolution. And you have an animal you physically isolated from normal movement because of a fear you have. Not a problem he currently has. The anxiety your vet identified is real, but where do you think it's coming from? Owner, I thought I was protecting him, coach. You were. And it's making him worse, not because you're wrong to care, but because protecting this dog and managing this dog are two different things. And right now, you're only doing one of them. Now, let's talk about intervertebral disc disease, IVDD. If you have a dachshund or you've ever Googled dachshund, you've seen this. It is the breed's most significant health challenge, and it is worth taking about clearly. IVDD is a condition in which the disc between the vertebrae of the spine degenerate, bulge, or rupture. It causes pain. In several cases, it causes paralysis. It requires rapid specialist treatment when it occurs, often surgery. Dachshunds have a genetic condition called chondrodystrophy. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that wrong. The same gene that produces their characteristic short legged, long bodied structure also affects how their spinal discs calcify. This is not a defect layered onto the breed, it is the mechanism that makes them what they are. The same gene, the prevalence of IVDD in dachshund is significant. Studies put clinical incidence between 15 to 24% over a dog's lifetime, with standard smooth haired dachshund at the higher end of that range and wire haired dachshund at the lower end. Relative to other breeds, dachshund face a risk of IVDD 10 to 12 times higher than average. This is real, and I'm not minimizing it. But here is what the research also shows. And this is the part most owners don't hear. A 2015 study involving over 2,000 dachshunds found that dogs who exercise for more than an hour a day were at lower risk of IVDD than dogs who exercised less than 30 minutes a day. Dogs who were highly active by owner report that better outcomes than dogs whose owners restricted their movements. Dogs who were allowed to jump in a controlled way were not at elevated risk compared to dogs who were not allowed to jump at all. What this tells us is that instinct to restrict and carry and cushion, the instinct that makes complete sense when you love a dog with a vulnerable spine, may be doing the opposite of what owners intend. Muscular support around the spine comes from movement. Controlled, appropriate, consistent movement. The dog wrapped in cotton wool to protect its back loses muscle tone, gains weight, becomes less able to support its own spine, and simultaneously develops behavioral problems from chronic understimulation. There is also a secondary effect that almost no one talks about. A dog that is carried everywhere never touches the ground. A dog that is never put down learns that the ground is something to be managed by its human. The dog becomes anxious, clingy, and reactive to everything that happens at ground level because it has no competence there. The IVDD fear creates the behavioral profile that then looks like anxiety or aggression. So, what does a dachshund actually need? Let me be direct. It needs to use its nose, scent work. Even informal sniffing walks, where the dog sets the pace and direction for part of the walk, is not optional for this breed. It is the primary outlet for the most dominant sense this dog has. A dachshund that doesn't get to sniff is a dachshund that is chronically understimulated regardless of how much physical exercise it gets. Sniff walk also tires the dog cognitively. 20 minutes of genuine nose work will settle a dachshund more reliably than an hour of fetch. It needs controlled, consistent physical exercise, not restriction. The goal is strong core muscles that support the spine, and that requires the dog to actually move its body. Ramps are useful tools for managing specific high impact repetitive movements like getting on and off furniture or in and out of the cars. They are not substitute for exercise. They are not reasons to stop walking the dog. It needs to make decisions. The dachshund's independent intelligence is an asset when it's given appropriate outlets. Problem solving games, puzzle feeders, training sessions that require the dog to think rather than just respond to cues. These engage the breed's mind. A dachshund that makes no decision all day will make them at night in your garage or garbage. It needs clear social rules. The dachshund that is allowed to bark without resolution, resource guard without consequence, and control its human's movement through reactivity or demands is not a dog that is getting what it wants. It is a dog that is managing stress with no tools and no guidance. Boundaries are not cruelty for this breed, they are containment. They are what gives the dog permission to relax. And it needs an owner who stops reading the size and starts reading the dog. The dachshund is not a small version of a generic dog. It is a specific breed with a specific profile. The stubbornness is intelligence. The bark is communication. The prey drive is instinct. The independence is heritage. None of it is a flaw. All of it is information if you know how to read it. Before we close, a few things worth keeping in mind if you have a dachshund or considering one. The dachshund comes in six recognized varieties: standard and miniature, in smooth, wire haired, and long haired coats. The behavioral profile is consistent across varieties. The wire haired variety tend to carry more terrier energy and prey drive from its breeding history. Smooth haired standard dachshund have the highest documented IVDD incidence. Socialization matters enormously for this breed. A dachshund that meets many people, dogs, and environment early develops competence and confidence. A dachshund that doesn't tend to see the world as a threat and will spend its life announcing that loudly. The double dapple coat pattern, where two merle patterned dogs are bred together, produces significant health risks, including blindness and deafness. This is a breeding choice driven by aesthetics. It is not a responsible one. If you're looking for a dachshund, avoid breeders offering double dapple puppies. The dachshund is not the right dog for everyone or for someone who wants easy compliance. It is the right dog for someone who is willing to work with a mind that doesn't need to defer to them and a body that needs to be taken seriously. The dachshund has spent the last 100 years being turned into something small and funny and manageable. It was never small. It was never designed to be manageable. It was designed to go underground in the dark and come back out with a result. That's not a dog you dress up. That's a dog you respect. If this dog helped you see your dachshund differently, or if you're someone who has a dachshund you've been carrying everywhere out of love, I want to hear from you. Find me on Instagram at DogCoachFrancis. Send me a message. Tell me about your dog. And if you're listening right now without being subscribed, open Spotify or Apple Podcasts and hit follow. That's the single most useful thing you can do to keep this show going. Browser listening doesn't count as a subscriber. Following does. I'm Doug Coach Francis. The dog is always right. We just have to learn to read it.